It's time for Reason.
The cat's out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden secret agenda that actually agencies are doing well, that we've increased spending across the board 1% to 2% every single year for every agency in the state government. If they continue to try and rail on the same things the way they've been doing for years, they're going to fail because people are beginning to wake up and realize that they have been lying. The propaganda they've been spouting has been not true, and that they're going to get in trouble for it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Mid-American Network. It's a brand new week. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? It is the week before Thanksgiving already. Good golly, this year has gone by too fast. We were just talking about Halloween a couple of weeks ago. Now we're talking about Thanksgiving coming up next week. Welcome into it. A lot to get to. I know a lot of people begin to try and disengage for the holidays. They try and turn away. They don't want to hear about the politics. They don't want to hear about the issues. And I understand. I totally get it. But now is the time that we need to buckle down. We need to focus and pay attention on some of the local activism more so than ever before. Welcome into it. Good morning to you. It's a brand new Monday. It is November the 13th already. This is the Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. It's an honor to have you along here. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. It's a Monday. It's time for us to get pumped up. We got to set the tone for the week as it is the last work week before a big holiday. I say we get as much done as we can. Be productive in society, shall we?
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
There it is, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. Shoot me a message on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, on the Twitter, at Hoosier Reason, along with the Facebook live feed that's rolling as well. You can check that out. All you got to do is go to the station you listen to on their Facebook page. You can see it, like it, share it. We appreciate it when you do so. Let's spread the word. Let's make it happen. Let's have a little fun while doing it. I hope everybody had a great weekend. It was a beautiful weekend. I loved it. It was much needed. It was a weekend. Got to spend some time with the family. We got to go see, oh yes, we cannot forget, got to go see Santa Claus already. Can you believe Santa Claus out and about already in the malls and all over town, to where you're able to go and get your picture with them. And the little 3-year-olds greatly enjoyed that. So now, apparently, it's Christmas time already. Again, I refuse to put out the Christmas decorations until Black Friday, until the day after Thanksgiving. So I got another week yet, but it is coming very quickly. So start getting it prepared. But yes, we did go out. We did see Santa Claus. Not only that, by the way, I do have to say my 3-year-old, she is absolutely 100% locked in with the whole Frozen thing. And her favorite characters in the whole wide world is Elsa and Anna, the two characters from Frozen. So along with being able to see Santa Claus, Anna and Elsa were at the mall to take pictures as well. And she was just about, if not more excited to see Anna and Elsa than she was to be able to see Santa Claus. And for Christmas, she told Santa Claus that she wanted an Anna and Elsa doll. So there you go. No one's dedicated to Frozen like my daughter. It's ridiculous. So it was a great time. It was a great weekend. Had a lot of fun. Hope you got to do the same thing. Getting ready to see the family. Maybe you're going to be traveling for the holidays. Maybe you're going to be out and about in the next week or so here. You're going to want to stay tuned into the show as much as you possibly can, as we are going to be start talking to a lot of the legislators, getting ready for the legislative session. Big news coming out of the legislative discussions already. Some of the committees that are preparing for the session, there's some really big news, positive news that I think that we need to pay attention to. For example, last week we did talk about the fact that the Republicans in the House in the state of Kansas did allot $400,000 to be able to hire attorneys to begin the legal battles for the education debate. That is a piece of good news. That is success. That is something that we should be very proud of, just because of the fact that we're now beginning to wake up and realize that we cannot continue to spend more and more money every single year on education. Something's got to be done, and maybe, just maybe, it's time that we actually put up our wall, we actually grow a spine, and we begin to fight the Supreme Court. Now, the Democrats and the mainstream media have done a very, very good job in trying to demonize that idea that it would be Republicans' fault if we actually threw ourselves into a constitutional crisis. It would be Republicans' fault if the Supreme Court had to shut down the schools. But again, there's really no way to shut down the schools. We're going to talk with, we talked with him on Friday. We're going to play kind of a montage of it, a little bit of a clip, a few clips at the bottom of the hour from Dave Traubert with the Kansas Policy Institute, because we ended up going an entire hour with him. I had to cut it down to about 8 minutes, but some really good information. We try to rail on the information. We try to rail on the facts. Now, if you want to disagree with the facts, you want to argue with me and debate with me, you're more than welcome to do so because I'm all about the dialogue. But, and you may be anywhere, western part of the state of Kansas, even outside of the state. Maybe you're from Oklahoma and you guys are like, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. We actually pay our teachers less in Oklahoma. We actually don't have as much money going in. We're struggling a little bit more. What the heck are you guys doing up there in Kansas? I totally get it. So I want to hear from you. Because I see it as the fact that, number one, the House Republicans are beginning to spend money on legal attorneys, meaning they're willing to fight the battle legally now instead of just bending over and just taking it and just doing whatever the Supreme Court tells them to do. We also see the fact that the Kansas citizens, the voters, and as we mentioned last week, out of the 8 different school bond issues that were on the ballot last week on Election Day, only 2 of them in the state of Kansas passed. While at the same time, every other sales tax referendum ended up passing throughout the state, 10 out of 10, which tells me that we are waking up to the fact that schools do have enough money, that we don't need to be spending a lot more on them, and that we can actually prepare ourselves for the fact that they can actually spend money on their own without having to increase bonds because we're paying income tax, we're paying sales tax, we're paying property tax, we're paying out the wazoo to be able to pay for education locally and at the state level. And by the way, whatever goes into the Department of Education at the federal level to go along with it. So there's money trickling in from everywhere. The question is, when are they going to start realizing that we're not going to continuously take our money for an education system without actually getting results? And we haven't seen the results, and that's the big problem. So we'll talk to Dave Traubert after the bottom of the hour. We'll play a little bit of that interview on what he has to say on that, along with, by the way, we did touch a little bit on the fact that the Democrats again went up to the federal level, to the Senate floor, trying to argue about tax reform. The Republicans now in the Senate at the federal level beginning to discuss tax reform today. They're beginning that debate. Where's it going to go? It's I see us having an opportunity here. Now is the time that we call, no matter where we're at, Kansas, Nebraska, Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, call your senators, call your elected officials, tell them to support it, tell them to vote for the tax reform. We have to show up in mass numbers. The Democrats and the progressives have done an astronomical job being able to bully, so to speak, their elected officials into supporting one way or another because they show up in mass. They make tons of phone calls. They're the activists. When I get it, it's very difficult for us to do so just because we're actually working. So it's tough for us to actually, want to be productive and actually do something in that realm and be that grassroots activist. But nonetheless, we need to show up. Write a letter. Make a phone call. If you're in the area, stop by. Whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do, make those calls. We have to get this done. I fear that if Donald Trump is not able to sign something soon, then we're not going to see some nice results that we want to see in the midterm elections next year. That's my fear. Now, we have an opportunity, if we play this right, to be able to show that we have Republicans obstructing us, that not only do we need to maintain a Republican majority, but we need to remove some of the Republicans and put in new Republicans. We have an opportunity to create that movement. The Republican Party's not going to like that very much because they just want Republicans to be in, and if they feel the incumbent's the best way to get reelected as opposed to getting somebody else in, that could be a threat. If Donald Trump comes out and actually makes a statement, hey, we need to remove some of this Republican, come up with a list. This is the list of Republicans that we need to remove from office in order for me to get my agenda done because I have not been able to, because they will not pass anything, and because I have not seen a single bill come to my desk. And because of that, we need to get these guys or gals out of office. We need to come up with that list. And the establishment, of course, will not like that. And the establishment, of course, will try and fight it tooth and nail. And Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan will throw their fit and try and do whatever they can do to obstruct it. We don't care anymore. It's time for you and I to vote on the right individual. It's time for you and I to make our case and to get somebody in that will get something done. No more obstructing a conservative Republican agenda. And if you do not like Donald Trump, then why don't we just support the Tea Party conservative anyways, get them into office, and then guess what? We might actually be able to get something passed. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. The next step is going to be very tricky, both at the statewide level and at the federal level. At the state level, there's a committee now discussing before the end of the year, before the legislative session begins, they're starting to discuss the idea of changing the state constitution's phrasing when it comes to suitable funding for education. I've never heard them say in the 2.5 years that I've been here, I've never heard them say, and even before that, even before during the Montoya case and everything else, before the legal cases, all the legal cases when it comes to education, I've never heard them say that they're going to do a serious discussion wanting to alter the Kansas Supreme Court's phrasing of suitable funding for education, which means, ladies and gentlemen, we are winning. We are beginning the discussion. We are beginning the dialogue. And the Republicans, who are in the majority, who voted for the tax increases and for the spending increases last year, they realize they cannot do that 2 years in a row, potentially 3 years in a row, and try and get reelected in the midterms next year. It's not going to happen. So they're scared, which means now they have to come up with an idea, with a concept, in order for them to try and look like they're trying to defend conservatism and get reelected in the elections next year. That's up to you to decide, though, and we need to keep the pressure on them. Put the pressure on and keep the pressure on. It's a Monday morning. We got a lot to get to. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason on the Mid-America Network.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Good Monday morning to you. Starting off a brand new week. Let's do it, baby. We got a lot to cover, a lot to get to. As we're talking about education funding, by the way, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK if you do want to join in. If you, talking about education, let's look through it through the lens of the young generation, shall we? The young kids, the millennials, let's say my generation and beyond. Let's look at it from this end. Is that all they hear is that we're not spending enough money on education. They had their experience in education, and they feel like they need to change the curriculum quite a bit. We see the movement to try and put in some transgender books into the classroom for elementary school students so we can make them aware of the changes that they may feel and embrace that change in those differences. We need to try and change the Common Core to Common Core math to where it's a little bit different for the curriculum on how to properly do math. It's the changes that we're seeing in education, and all they hear is that there's never enough money. And they've grown up thinking that as long as you throw enough money at it, then something's going to stick and it'll actually work. It's the young... Look, there's not going to be a whole lot of rational discussion going forward when it comes to the young generation being able to take over the discussion of education. They're the ones that think it's okay, like myself at one point, to get deep into debt, to go into college, to go to a four-year university, to go and sit during the safe space, to be worried about the trigger warnings, to be worried about my microaggressions being invaded. That's how you use that term, right? I think so. Yeah. They're the ones that are going to go on and talk about education funding and say, oh, look, we need to spend more money. We don't want to increase the size of government, but we do want to increase the spending so that, or we can at least raise the taxes so that way we can give free universities and we can go to college for free, or we can go to education and get our education for free because it's all about free things, because we love socialism and just wonderful things. According to the latest study, according to a survey from the Victims of Communist Memorial Foundation, a D.C.-based nonprofit, 1 in 2 U.S. millennials, my generation, says the world that they would rather live in a socialist or communist country than in a capitalist democracy. Now, again, we don't live in a democracy, but it's very cute they use that term. What's more, 22% of them have a favorable view of Karl Marx, and a surprising number of them see Joseph Stalin and Kim Jong-un as quote-unquote heroes. Remember the ones tearing down the statues for the Confederate flags? Remember that a little bit deeper research found out that a lot of these individuals were pro-North Korea, were actually part of the Communist Party of the country, actually viewed communism favorably. There's a poll to these individuals as the heroes of millennials. Now, the good news is that the majority, still 60%, view Ronald Reagan as the top hero. Number 2, though, is a close second, Bernie Sanders at 40%. George W. Bush at 39%. Justin Trudeau, the president of Canada, at 38%. Now, why that? Just because they view Canada as being the nice little socialist, happy little nation up north, and you can go there and you can smoke marijuana, and you can get your socialized medicine, and everything's all hunky-dory. The Great White North. Oh, you want to go up north instead of down south to Canada or to Mexico. Isn't that racist? Just saying. Angela Merkel from Germany, 37%. Donald Trump, 31%. Hillary Clinton, 30%. Che Guevara at 26% of these individuals viewing them as a hero. Vladimir Putin, 25%. Karl Marx at 18%. Vladimir Lenin at 17%. Mao Zedong at 16%. Joseph Stalin at 13%. Kim Jong-un at 13%. And Nicolas Maduro at 12%. Millennials now make up the largest generation in America, and we're seeing some deeply worrisome trends. Millennials are increasingly turning away from capitalism and towards socialism and even communism as a viable alternative. Why? Here's my theory on that. They're too complacent. We've made the world too easy for them. The generations before were hard workers. They went through wars. They understood what these ideologies did. They understood the devastating effects that they actually have. They understood the leaders of these countries being actual murderers and actually being genocidal individuals. I could use a radio edit word there, but I'm not going to. You hear about Hitler running under the National Socialist Party of Germany. You hear about Mao Zedong actually committing mass genocide. You hear about Stalin that committed mass genocide. You hear about Che Guevara being a raping, pillaging, quote unquote revolutionist to take out one dictator and put in another. But yet they're heroes because they see them as revolutionists fighting to change the system, man. That's what it's all about. And that's what they support. Fighting and changing the system. These are all the ones, by the way, the same ones that the latest story came out showing that they're advocating to teach high schoolers now in California, the new curriculum when it comes to sex education, which I'm going to try and do this as layman as I can, that now they're being taught in high school that they need to obtain consent every 10 minutes during the action. Because there's such a gray area when it comes to consent versus rape versus abuse that literally, no matter what the action may obtain, which I'm not going to get into the graphic details, you know how these things work, that now they're being taught that you need consent, verbal consent, every 10 minutes during the entire process. Okay. Because that way that clears up any type of gray area of consent. Someone may decide, never mind, I don't want to do this anymore. And then all of a sudden, you know what? You have abused and raped that individual. Okay. Bottom of the hour news coming up. Lots to get to here. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here. It's a Monday. Let's have a little fun with it, shall we?
Doesn't tolerate name calling.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
But if you want to try, call the show at 316-721-8255 right now. This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, good morning to you. Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Great to have you along today. It's a Monday. Let's make it the best day we can, shall we? We got one more week until a holiday. Let's carpe diem all over this place, make it a successful week for you. Next week, you get to enjoy a little bit, have a little fun with it, but this week, let's get ahead, shall we? The progressives, they like to complain about everything. We actually get the job done and like to actually enjoy what we do. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you do want to join in, you're more than welcome to do so. I hope you got to enjoy last night if your station, I know that the western part of the state, KIUL, I know you guys end up carrying it out there. KGYN, you don't. But the Armed American Radio on Sunday evenings live from 7 to 10 o'clock, and it was a blast. I got to join Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio, last night in the 9 o'clock hour. A little bit late night, but it was a lot of fun. Always great to chat with him as we talked about guns. Funny enough, and ironically, talking about the young generation and the millennials, about medical marijuana and how it affects gun legislation in state-by-state laws. And to use the reference of Arizona, and this happens all across the states in many places, the fact that, well, you know what, if you apply for a green card, you're not allowed to get a concealed carry. You don't get to actually get approved for your concealed carry. So the young generation, if you ask them on what their priority is it to carry a gun for self-defense or is it to smoke pot? I wonder what their response is going to be. The slow, ongoing battle, the never-ending battle when it comes to actually the priorities of the young generation and what they actually like to do. I want to get into this. I want to play the interview. It's about 8 minutes long, so I want to have some time to do so. A few weeks ago, we talked to the Oklahoma Policy Institute with some of the financial obligations and the burdens that are going on down in Oklahoma. And we talked to Dave Traubert about once a month here from the Kansas Policy Institute. And it's always great to talk with him. He has so much information. One of these days, we're going to do a full 2 or 3 hours with him because there's so much information. And last week on Friday, we had the entire 8 o'clock hour with him. I kind of had to snip it down a little bit, obviously, for time restraints, but some great information. And we started off talking about the Democrats going to the federal level, the federal tax reform, and what that looks like, and went into some of the education discussions here in the state of Kansas. This is Dave Traubert, Kansas Policy Institute.
Yeah, except they're not watching what really happened.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, a lot of the claims are just simply not true. And maybe some of the people making the claims think they're true because they've heard it over and over again in the press. It's simply not true. Yeah, did Kansas make some mistakes? Absolutely. At the state level, you can't cut revenue and increase spending. Pretty soon, you run into a problem. And they knew that that was the case when they voted for it. They knew that every year. Mm-hmm. But it was a bipartisan effort, Democrats and Republicans alike. The majority of Republicans and all the Democrats had no interest in either reducing the cost of government or increasing a tax to do it. Whether you agree or not it should be done, at least propose something to balance the budget. But most of them, for a lot of different reasons, just sat on their hands and let it burn down.
It's fascinating to watch. And some of the stuff they brought up at the federal level, they never even talked about here. They were never on the campaign trail talking about it. The media never reported on it, of some of the cuts and consolidations that they had to do, some of the sacrifices the government had to make because of all these cuts that Brownback, who hates puppy dogs and children, ended up doing for the state. The stuff they brought up there, they never talked about here. I don't know where it even came from.
It's easy to make claims when you're not constrained by the truth. And unfortunately, that happens an awful lot. You know, they talk about things like, well, Kansas, they just couldn't make their revenue estimates. Mm-hmm. Well, that's about as common as the wind blowing. That's been that way for decades. I mean, you look at the data, and yeah, they've been off. I mean, sometimes up, sometimes down, but off by double digits, 10 percentage points or more a year out. And then you start looking at, now, why do they miss? Well, part of it is because they were predicting things like 4.6% GDP growth in Kansas.
Right.
Hasn't happened in a long time. We had oil prices plummet. We had corn, wheat, soybean prices fall. So you had over $100 million loss in severance tax in 1 year. You had sales taxes. You look at the county maps where you can see sales tax receipts by county, and you see areas that were hit by that are largely impacted by oil or ag or both, and you see negative sales tax declines. Well, that's what happens when business falls off, and it had nothing to do with tax cuts.
Looking at coming up in January, I've been trying to remind individuals, come in January, the next stage of the tax increase takes place. We're going to see another tax increase in January that a lot of people have forgotten already because we thought the big travesty was going to happen in July. It happens again in January. I don't think a lot of people are going to be very happy about this.
No, they're not, and they're going to be even less happy with the one that's coming after that, because that tax increase they passed this year, the retroactive tax increase that some legislators still want to pretend wasn't retroactive.
Sure, yeah.
The budget's out of balance within 2 years.
Yep.
Because they also approved spending $500 million more between the 17, 18, and 19 budget. So in 2 years, we're out of balance. If they don't come back in January and start reducing the cost of government, get ready for the next tax increase. And that's before they even think about what the Supreme Court wants to do in taking over the state.
Realistically, do you think they're going to reduce the size of government and their spending with this legislative makeup right now?
They either are going to have to do that
or
they're
taxes.
going to have to raise taxes. So I know they don't want to do either. But honestly, there are some people, even those who voted for the giant tax increase we already got, they're nervous now because what happened was they didn't go out and campaign on, they said, we're going to balance the budget. We're going to make other people pay their fair share. Well, what they did was give every one of us a double-digit retroactive tax increase. And now that the public is finding that out, they're pretty upset. So I may have voted for that tax increase because I wanted to really raise taxes, and the people who elected me, the unions and others wanted it. But now I'm getting beat up for it. And now the Supreme Court is saying,
more.
you need to double down on that. My goodness, somebody might get unelected. And so that's what they're facing. They're going to have to do one or the other.
This being an election year, their goal is to try and get in and get out as quickly as possible. Would they try and raise taxes again on an election cycle year legislative session?
I know that some will try that. I don't think the votes are there right now for it, and that's a good thing, because the more that people understand that they've already had one tax increase, they have another one coming next year. We're being taxed to death here in Kansas.
Going into this, as I mentioned, we teased, the story came out yesterday. The House Republicans allotted $400,000 for the legal side of this battle going into education funding. I see that as potential optimism of what we can do to begin stopping this, drawing the line in the sand, saying we're not going to be bullied any longer. I have reservations that our legislative makeup right now would actually do that. Is this a good sign, or are we going to see them actually try and fight the Supreme Court, or are they just going to bow out again?
It is a good sign, because you need to have legal advice on how to, if nothing else, creating a legislative record, because the role of the court is supposed to be merely to decide whether the legislature did anything unreasonable. It's not their role. By their own ruling, their role is not to set the number. They say adequacy is when funding is reasonably calculated to do this.
Sure. Was
it reasonable or not? Not whether it was enough. And so you need to be able to show this is how we arrived at these things. And that's what those attorneys are going to help doing. Whether the legislature stands up to the court or not, we'll see. But they need to. And they need to make sure the first order of business is keeping schools open, and they can do that.
Well, you're right. They can do that. And if they do end up getting shut, it's the Supreme Court's decision to do so, not the legislature, which we need to make very clear. But it's not going to happen.
The Supreme Court can't, they don't have the National Guard. They can't go in and lock the doors. What they can do is cut off the money flow.
Sure.
And so the first order of business when they come back in January should be to pass a law that ensures that the administration can get checks written and sent to school districts.
Which you would think would be common sense, because the legislature has the power of the purse. So how is the Supreme Court able to cut off the funding of this?
Well, what they do is, because the checks are actually written by the state treasurer, and that's an elected office. So they would enjoin the state treasurer, saying you are not allowed to. And so
being bullies.
Basically being bullies.
One good piece of advice that I see, I saw the trend on election night, and I think this is a trend. I'm hoping that people are beginning to wake up to this because of the discussions that we've had, the information that you guys have provided. There were 8 school bond issues throughout the state of Kansas in local school districts, 8 bond issues to either improve security or buildings, or to improve athletic departments or athletic fields or whatever. Only 2 of the 8 approved and passed in the state of Kansas. I'm hoping that that's a sign that people said, wait a second, you guys have some money, use that instead of actually us extending a bond or getting a new bond in order to do more school improvements.
Yeah, the more people find out about how money is spent, it's kind of a two-pronged thing. On one side, they're looking at, do we really need to spend money on this when we have an academic issue? And the other aspect is they're being taxed to death, not just by schools, but by cities and counties and legislators that want to raise taxes to record levels. So they're being squeezed and saying, look, I mean, people are willing to fund schools.
Sure.
But they want to see that it do something good for the kids, not just build monuments.
There it is. That was Dave Trubber on Friday from the Kansas Policy Institute here on The Voice Reason. We appreciate him joining the show. Some great information. Can you imagine, just think for a second, to raise taxes 3 years in a row and expect to get elected as a Republican? Now, other legislators who may believe in this, Democrats, of course, you're going to believe in that. You're going to want to. You're going to want to raise taxes because the government is more of a priority than the population. And that's just the way the Democrats work, the progressive ideology. And that's just the way it works. Oh, we need social programs because people don't have a lot of money. Okay, we'll cut their taxes. No, that doesn't really help them. It doesn't really do anything if you actually cut their taxes. We just need to take care of them and make them become a dependent on the government, which means that the rich just need to pay their fair share more and more and more. That's their ideology. It's a loony ideology, and you're never going to try and explain to them that that's a stupid ideology. But for Republicans to say, yeah, we're going to raise taxes, but we're going to raise taxes 3 years in a row. We raised it last year. We're going to do it retroactively, even though they don't say that it's retroactive. Yeah, it's not really retroactive. It's still the same budget year. So you're just going to owe taxes because we're going to compensate. You just owe the difference between January and July when the rate actually changed that you actually didn't pay, but you're going to be accountable for that. So when you file your taxes in April, you're going to owe that. No, by the way, in the following January, then it's going to go up again because of the baby steps that we have here. We may have to raise it again because, well, we spent a whole lot of more money, and our 2-year budget looks like it's going to be short again. And oh, by the way, in 2 years from now, we're probably going to have to raise it a third time just because of the fact that we spent too much money. 3 times as a Republican, and then try and say, you know, I uphold conservative values. Please reelect me for office again. See how well that works for you.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Mid-America Network.
Back into the Voice of Reason. Good Monday morning to you. Appreciate you hanging out with us today. It's a Monday. It's a great day. Let's make it a good one here, shall we? Carpe diem all over this place. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Your thoughts on education funding, your thoughts on tax reform. What's the next step at the federal level and or at the statewide level? How do we fight this stuff? Look, we need to remove the establishment. We need to remove... It's up to us. It's up to us, the voters, on what's going to happen in our government. It's going to be up to us to hold them accountable, not just to show up on election day, but to go up and make phone calls, send the emails, send out the tweets, do whatever you do on social media. It's up to us to be knocking on the doors. Have you heard about so-and-so? Let's get you to vote for them because they're the right person for the job. To go to the phone banks, to do it, whatever you need to do. I mean, we're going to have a major governor's race coming up next year. The first debate set up for the middle of February. Get ready for that because it's going to be a lot of fun. But get ready for a bloodbath because there's already polarizing ideas right within the Republican Party when it comes for the governor's race. There are Republicans who are stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. They've never been in this position before. When they ran, many of these, by the way, freshmen in the state legislature for Kansas, they're freshmen. They went in with the idea, with the concept, with the vision, because they were told that all they had to do is repeal the LLC corporate tax loopholes, which, by the way, again, is not an actual loophole. If you hear that phrasing, it should be the red flag for you to come up and say, wait a second, this is not actually a loophole. How can it be a loophole if the legislature voted on it and passed it, if the governor signed it? It's an incentive. It's not a loophole. The media trying to label it as a loophole is another flat-out, absolute 100% lie. It's just a way to demonize something when it doesn't actually need to be demonized. Nonetheless, they had the concept that with all these crazy businesses, all of these businesses that actually don't pay taxes, which again is just not the case. But because of all these businesses that supposedly don't pay taxes because of the LLC corporate loophole, then just by repealing that, we'd be back on track as a state. We'd be able to get under this, to get out of this financial burden. We'd be out of the shortfall. They can continue to raise funding for whatever they need to, continue to spend the way that they want to spend, and then everything would be hunky-dory. Once they got there, they realized that that's just not the case. So what did they have to do? They had to repeal, the LLC loophole, quote unquote, which isn't really a loophole. That only compensated for $250 million, the $1.2 billion shortfall. You still got a ways to go there, pal, don't you? Oh, don't you know? So what do you have to do? You have to raise income taxes. Because you don't want to raise sales tax. You just went on the campaign trail for the governor's race as a Democrat and said that you're going to start lowering the sales tax rate in the state because it's one of the highest in the nation. And rightly so. We should lower that. So what do you have to do? You have to raise income tax. And that affects everybody. To remind everyone again, not only are you going to owe taxes in April when you file because of the retroactive taxes for the first 6 months of the year, but also your tax rate is going up again in just 2 months, a month and a half, when it hits January 1. Not to mention that they could raise taxes again in this new legislative session. Not to mention that in 2019, next year, for the legislative session, they're going to be looking at their 2-year budget cycle again directly after an election, and they are already forecasted to be $1 billion into a budget shortfall. So guess what? They're going to have to raise taxes again. As a Republican, how can you come to a resolution and come to the idea and the platform and say, I'm going to promote conservative Republican values by raising taxes 3 years in a row, at least 2 years in a row? How are you going to say, I'm going to have a fiscally government responsibility, I'm going to be fiscally responsible, I'm going to hold the government accountable, I'm going to have government transparency, I'm going to limit regulation, I'm going to limit the size of government, just the basic Republican platform. We're not even talking about moderate Republicans versus conservatives here or Tea Partiers. We're just talking about the basic mission statement of a Republican value. Lower taxes, limited government, less regulation, more free enterprise, more private market. Just those basic principles. How can you go on the campaign trail and advocate for those things when you've voted for tax increases over numerous years in a row? The midterm elections, they're going to have a tough time. Once they realize that it wasn't as simple as they thought, now they're stuck in a bind. The Supreme Court just told them they need more money for education. We're running into a budget shortfall again come 2019. They're running into a shortfall and they want to increase spending again. What are they going to do? Well, it's up to us to decide what we tell them to do. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 2 with The Voice Reason coming up. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
The cat's out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden secret agenda that actually agencies are doing well, that we've increased spending across the board 1% to 2% every single year for every agency in the state government. If they continue to try and rail on the same things the way they've been doing for years, they're going to fail because people are beginning to wake up and realize that they have been lying. The propaganda they've been spouting has been not true, and that they're going to get in trouble for it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Good morning to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It's the day we look forward to every single week. It's a Monday morning. Welcome into it. It's time to carpe diem all over this place. We're going to have to clean it up with a mop once we're all done because we want to be the productive members of society. We want to get that edge every single day when we go to work, no matter whether you enjoy your job or you don't enjoy it. It's a day that we can be successful. Welcome into it here. This is The Voice Reason. I am Andy Hoosier on a Monday morning. It's time to get pumped up. As you know, we do this every single week. We got to get you excited for the day. You ready to go for the day? You ready to go for the entire week? It's a Monday morning on The Voice of Reason.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get
721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join into the program, you are more than welcome to do so. You can shoot me a message on Facebook, on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason, along with the Facebook live feed we have rocking and rolling right now. A lot of people checking it out this morning. Welcome into it. We appreciate that and love you very much for doing so. Like it, share it, leave a comment, say good morning, whatever you want to do. Let's grow this. And I love when you reach out that way. Just a simple good morning. It starts my day properly, knowing that people actually enjoy the early mornings as much as I do. Coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, we talked with last week on Friday. He was in town. We ended up sitting down with him in studio for a little bit. Kansas State Treasurer Jake LaTurner was in as he was finishing and wrapping up his 105-county tour for the state of Kansas, returning assets, forgotten and lost assets from the state, and going around to every single county trying to get the movement to make people aware that they may have some property that they have lost or forgotten, maybe just a deposit from a utility bill from way back when, years ago, that they had forgotten about that the state's sitting on. It's not their money, and they're trying to return it to you. And he finished up that tour. Wichita was the last place that he was in. He stopped by on Friday. We're going to air that interview for you coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. So it's the first time, by the way, that we've been able to talk with Jake LaTurner, the state treasurer, since the transition with Congressman Estes when he stepped down from that position. So we welcome Jake LaTurner onto the program. We look forward to chatting with him coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. You're not going to want to miss a great interview, and I'm looking forward to continuously talking with him as he is a state treasurer. A bright guy, so really looking forward to that. Appreciate him coming by the studio here. Coming up this week, it's going to be a lot of fun, as we have some great guests already. We got a couple more slots we're trying to book and trying to get a few more legislators on the program as we begin our legislative preamble, let's say, talking about what's going to happen. But I am really excited. Coming up on Wednesday, it's an interview you're not going to want to miss. It was a lot of fun trying to get booked and trying to get scheduled. But Alex Jones, Infowars.com, if you're a big fan of Alex Jones. If you're not a big fan of Alex Jones, Infowars.com. We air his program here on KQAM on Sunday evenings from 5 to 7, right before Armed American Radio. You can tune into that. But we chat with and talk with Alex Jones with Infowars.com on Wednesday. Going to be a fun interview. Now, you may enjoy Alex Jones. You may not enjoy Alex Jones. Regardless, he's an entertainer. He is entertaining. Whether you agree or disagree with the positions he makes, maybe you think he's a little outlandish and a little exotic. Maybe you think he's dead on, whatever. From the broadcasting perspective, he's one of the most entertaining hosts on radio. He knows how to create emotion. He knows how to get you riled up. He does that very, very well. And from a broadcasting stance, from the theatrical stance that is broadcasting, look, radio is such a unique beast because, and Rush Limbaugh's been attacked for this, Alex Jones has been attacked for this, Sean Hannity's been attacked for this, of saying that they don't believe in what they say because it's all just a performance. And you could try and make that claim even for myself, but it's not the case. Here's the thing. You could be the smartest guy on radio. You could be the smartest guy in the world. You could be Dr. Michio Kaku, who is, by the way, classified as one of the top 20 smartest individuals in the entire world, as he is a theoretical physicist. You could be a brilliant, genius individual, but unless you do it in an entertaining way on radio so people want to tune into you, then no one's going to listen because you have to keep their attention. Alex Jones does a phenomenal job with that. Now, whether you agree with his quote-unquote conspiracy theories at times, whether you disagree with it, he's a very entertaining individual, and I got to give him props for that. And being number 26 is the most listened to talk show in the country, he does a very good job of that, obviously. So we'll talk with Alex Jones coming up on Wednesday. You're not going to want to miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. 721-8255-721-TALK if you want to join in. There is some good news. We're winning. And I have to give thanks here to this individual in our state legislature who we've been critical of at times. Many conservatives have been critical of at times, but I have to give credit where credit's due, and I really thank her for what she's done with this comment. She was at the Pachyderm Club just a couple of weeks ago, and she made a comment. Why would the court deliver us this timing? Do you think maybe they would like to elect a Democrat governor so they can have more Democrat appointees to the Supreme Court? Is that why timing is all going to fall next year on an election cycle? This being the Senate President, Susan Wagle, from here in the Wichita area. $600 million is what they're asking for additional funding above what. Now, remember, we just increased education funding last year, $400 million over the next 2 years. That's not enough. They wanted $1 billion. So what do? They compensate by now coming out with a new lawsuit or continuing the lawsuit, asking for an additional $600 million. Susan Wagle says that that's absolutely unaffordable and completely unattainable, which I completely agree with. And thank you for saying that. We are all being held hostage across the state by 4 school districts who are suing the state, saying it's not enough money. I completely agree. We're beginning to wake up. How many years? I know that they've tried to argue this for a really long time, trying to say that we've cut funding. And you even heard some of the candidates from the school board running for the Wichita School Board saying that they've gotten their funding cut, that they don't have any say or power over what the state legislature does with the state funding, and it's been cut. When in fact, as you know, as we try and rail on all the time, that it has not been cut, that it's actually gone up every single year. It may be small increments, but it's still been going up. Every single year that Brownback has been in office, and media listen up because I want some reports on this, every single year Governor Brownback has been in office, education funding has gone up at least 1% to 2%. It's the facts. It's the truth. Do not report anything otherwise because it's a bold-faced lie. And we need to remember that. Now, where that money goes, that's the question. And that's what we need to look at. How can you cut funding when you have the Montoya case? How can you cut funding when you have this case? How can you cut funding when you have a legal suit going to the Supreme Court every single year where the Supreme Court says you need more money every single year or else we're going to shut down the schools? I have not seen the schools shut down yet. Have you? I know it's been threatened, but I have not seen the schools be shut down yet. So the question is, what are we going to do about it? Well, as you know, we've seen some good news when it comes to the state legislature. As of last week, when they just, the House Republicans allotted $400,000 for the legal attorneys to start and begin fighting this issue. The other thing that's good news that we need to pay attention to, that now there's a committee working, and they want at least 3 different meetings before the end of the year to talk about constitutional changes when it comes to that amendment for education funding. Constitutional changes for school finance. This is exactly what we've been wanting to do. This is what we have to do. And they're finally, after how many years beginning to talk about this, legislatures on an interim committee studying school finance could mull changes to the Kansas Constitution, altering the way the Supreme Court oversees K-12 funding and present the legislature with tax and spending options to increase education funding. Now, at least we're talking about the Constitution, and I am somewhat open to a negotiation when it comes to this argument. I am somewhat open to a negotiation and a compromise if we're going to change the wording in the state constitution. Now, I'm not going to budge very much because we've given so much money that I don't think they need any more. But if we have to throw them a little bone while we actually change it so this will not be an issue anytime longer and the Kansas Supreme Court will not have the power to control us from here on out, then I would be open to suggestions. The committee will meet 3 times by the end of the year to provide recommendations to legislators who by April have to respond to a Kansas Supreme Court ruling that found K-12 funding unconstitutional. The court said the legislature's new school finance formula was both inadequately funded and unfairly distributed between schools. Some Republican legislators have expressed frustration over the court's role in school finance and would like to see the authority changed. Committee members are tasked with looking, by the way, this is from the Topeka Capital Journal. This means that they're discussing it. This means that they've heard from constituents saying we're sick and tired of hearing about more funding when we haven't seen results. We're sick and tired of hearing about the Constitution being inadequate or unsuitable when we've thrown in 60% of our state budget. This is you telling your legislators you're sick and tired of the discussion of more education funding. This is you. This is the response. Now they're doing it in a way to try and get more funding for education, but if they're discussing the idea of suitable funding and the phrasing in the Constitution, this is you making this happen because we've created a loud enough voice to tell them that we're not going to deal with their lies, with their insults, and with taking more of our tax money away. Committee members are tasked with looking at the range of options, including how much money to spend on schools, whether schools can be cut elsewhere in the budget, and whether taxes should be increased. Democrats say they were worried Republican leaders were primarily interested in a constitutional amendment that would alter the court's authority over the schools. Yes, yes, and yes. They should be scared. They should be absolutely petrified and terrified of the fact that we are talking about trying to change the Constitution, because this is their loophole. You want to talk about loopholes? The LLC loophole was not actually a loophole. This is a loophole with the power of the purse to the House, to Congress, being able to decide where the money actually goes, while the Supreme Court comes in and says, yeah, you need more funding on this. No, we tell how much money goes in here. Yeah, but it's not constitutional. They should be terrified because the progressives have been able to find the loophole and use it for how many years now? For all these court cases. Change it. Now, what we have to do, and I know it's going to be really, really hard, Republicans, you have to unite. Republicans, you have to rally around one singular movement. You have a majority in Congress. You have a majority to override the Supreme Court, and you have to stick to your guns. You have to create the amendment in order to change the suitable funding phrasing in the Constitution. You have to be able to do it. You have to rally, you have to unite, and you have to work together as Republicans. I know it's a really hard concept to be able to rally under, but you have to. Republicans uniting, and you have to force it down the Democrats' throats. They're not going to like it. Oh, well. They're the children that are throwing a fit about more money for schools while they set aside $7 million for education lawsuits in order to get more funding. They're the ones with 4 major school districts in the state advocating for more school funding while they're sitting on record number funding for schools with absolute record number cash flow and cash reserves just sitting there waiting to be spent because they're terrified, quote unquote, that the schools are going to be shut down. It's time for us to rally. And the moderate Republicans, conservative Republicans, and everything in between, it's time to unite right now. It's time in this session. This could be the session. And I guarantee you, all you moderate Republicans that are kind of scared on what's going to happen with the midterm elections next year, after supporting tax hikes, after supporting raising taxes when you said you wouldn't do such a thing, after coming up and realizing that you're going to see a shortfall, this could be your saving grace right here. If you come back into this session and you redeem yourself, quote unquote, by saying, look, I'm going to fight the Supreme Court. I'm going to vote to change the Constitution so that way we don't have this argument any longer. If you come back and you do that, that could be your saving grace in the midterm elections next year. It really could be. 721-825-5721 Talk. I want to get your thoughts on this and more. Positive news, a big movement that we could have. Now, they're going to try and get in, get out as fast as they can in this legislative session. We can't allow that. We need to make sure they do their job, and this is an opportunity to do so, and remind them that if they do said thing by changing Constitution phrasing, that could show very nicely in the midterm elections come next year. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. Happy Monday morning to you. Starting off a brand new week, baby, making it happen. We appreciate you hanging out with us. By the way, the Facebook Live feed, for whatever reason, my Facebook Live computer felt like doing a nice little reboot on me. So there's a part 2 Facebook Live feed on the KQAM page now. You can go there, you can like it, you can follow that one. Appreciate you when you do. This portion of the Voice of Reason brought to you by Network Consultants. Business owners, listen up. I know you have your programs, you have your network, you have numerous computers, maybe you have different programs on your computers, you need to be able to share files, share folders, maybe you just want to protect your information and back it up so that way you don't lose anything or you don't want to get hacked. Now's the opportunity for you to do so. They're an infrastructure company. They can help you. They work on your firewalls and sonic walls, database safety and security, network communication, VPN, backup solutions, even helping you get it set up on the cloud. You have all your different programs. You have all your different computers, maybe a network that you share things all the time. And it's the side of the business that if you don't pay attention to it, something can happen. It can easily screw everything up, and it costs more money to fix it than it does to actually maintain it. Call them now. You'll get a free network analysis. Tell them that I sent you. They'll visit your business, review your system, help you any way you can, even help guide you to manage your own network. They have month-to-month plans available. You do not have to do any long-term agreements. Give them a call. It's that simple. 316-201-4624. 316-201-4624, or visit network-consultants.com. Again, network-consultants.com. The success, I know this is an off-season here, and the off-seasons usually are pretty quick in and out when it comes to the legislative session. This year we have an opportunity to really make a big change. And again, it will show very lightly on the moderate Republicans who have voted for tax increases. It will show very nicely on them if they end up saying, hey, you know what? It was a one-time deal. We made a mistake here, and now we're going to not allow the Kansas Supreme Court to bully us any longer. With that, let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
My name is Eddie.
Eddie, how are you, sir?
I know this is kind of awkward. It's not the subject, but last Thursday or Friday, there were some comments made about my county commissioner, Michael O'Donnell.
Yes.
And I'd like to say that I've watched him for years, since he was a city councilman, then he went up to the Senate. Now he's a county commissioner. And as far as I'm concerned, and if you know me, Andy, if there's a little bit of crookedness, I'll throw stones at him.
Sure.
But I don't see anything with Michael O'Donnell. I think he's a very fine young man. I think he's a rising star among the county commissioners. And I will point out that they had a vote to, change his position on the county commission or something like that. And
yeah, to remove him from the chair of the commission, exactly.
Yeah, from 4-1. So the rest of the commissioners supported him. And so I don't want to say anything negative about any other county commissioner. I just want to say that I support Michael O'Donnell, except for one thing, and that's the chicken farm.
Sure.
But I think he's a very fine man. I think he's a very honest person, and I think he's a rising star. And the people in our district voted for him. We support him. We care for him. And
well, I'm glad you said that, Eddie. And I hate to cut you off here. We got bottom of the hour news coming up, but I'm glad you said that. And you're right. I mean, time will tell on whether the accusations that were made about him are true or not. But you're right. I mean, the people in that district voted for him, support him, and only time will tell on what's going to come of those kind of accusations. Bottom of the hour news coming up. This is The Voice of Reason.
Taking talk radio to the next level. The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Surfing through social media, it's fun. It's a blast. You know, they always have these compilations of different videos. They're entertaining to some degree. They're fun. They're annoying in some. And I love watching the ones to where there's the big hits. As you know, I'm a big MMA guy, big UFC fighter. And watching some of the videos of the big hits, and you know, they hit the body and the body just goes, the other guy just goes limp and just collapses. The body's an amazing thing. I know what they're going to say. Oh, the right-wing conservative crazy. He likes violence and angry stuff and fights. And it's entertaining. Come on. It's a manly game. It's a manly sport. But watching it, the body's an amazing thing that it knows to turn itself off during a traumatic incident so it protects itself. I don't think I've told this story on the air before, but I was, 7, 8 years old in Ohio before I moved to Colorado. My parents were building a log home. They were log home sales people at that time, selling log homes. We built one ourselves, and it was really cool. And if you've seen a log home in the stages of being built, you have, for the floor, you have just the log beams that go across. And then on top of the log beams, and you start putting the plywood and be able to walk on it and then make your flooring. And we were up on the third. It was a 3-story home. We had the basement, we had the main floor, and then upstairs. I was playing upstairs, and what we had done was we had laid plywood over top of the log beams in order to be able to walk around on them. And being the stupid kids that we were playing on them one day and ended up stepping on a piece that was not supported by both sides, ended up falling, and I fell through. And again, it was funny because actually my family gave me the card that the guardian angel was watching me, sort of thing. It was pretty wild. I don't remember any of it except for just like blacking out and feeling a little wind because I stepped on it. I fell through, and I fell from the top floor all the way, had to have hit the logs on the main floor, because, looking down, it's not like a straight shot or anything. Hit the logs to the main floor, fell through that one, and then landed on the concrete floor in the basement, which is about 40 feet down. The crazy thing was the plywood somehow ended up landing underneath me, as opposed to me landing directly onto the concrete floor. I don't know how I lived through it. It was a little wild, but nonetheless, I didn't even walk away with a concussion. Nothing. Just a little banged and bruised, and my glasses at the time had broken. But again, it's one of those where you just go blank. You just go out, and you don't remember any of it. I remember having it black out and feeling a little breeze, and then opening my eyes, and I'm staring straight up, and I didn't have a cracked skull. Nothing. It was weird. Pretty wild. So count your blessings every single day, because you never know what's going to happen. 721-825-5721. Talking about, by the way, education, when it comes to the education thing, when it comes down to it, as we've mentioned before, you and I, the constituents, the voters, the parents, the average day Kansan, you and I are the ones that are going to give the real education. The teachers can only do so much, and we give credit the teachers are amazing, amazing individuals. How they continue to teach and want to educate our children when they are the ones that, they go through the hardships. They don't get the raises that they need to. They have to work with the bureaucracy. They have to work with the teachers' unions. They have to work with all this junk, and then say that the focus is on the parents and on the children and on the teachers is just not true. But when it comes down to it, as you and I have mentioned, that the real education comes from home, to where you and I, as the parents, we help our children be able to get educated and do their homework when they need to. That we do the additional homework. So we help them when they have the question. That we take it to the next step, to where they understand the information that's being given to them for the homework, but then we take it to the next level so that way they understand it completely. It's you and I as the parent that has that responsibility. And according to Education News, an English teacher, explains 5 reasons today why students can't write. How many individuals do you know, the young kids, the young generation, maybe in high school right now, maybe just out of high school, how many of them can actually sign their name in cursive? How many of them actually write cursive? How many of them actually read cursive? How many of them actually do a times table? Remember the times tables? You had the big chart, and you had to actually do the times tables on the math in there. How many people do the mad minutes any longer? You have a minute to do as many problems as you can, mathematic problems. How many of them actually do freestyle writing any longer? Not very many on all of these accounts, which is why the test scores are continuously going down. And by the way, let me remind you, no amount of money is going to fix those issues. It's literally just going to take the time to do so. I remember, and I don't know if they still do this or not, but I remember that during English class and during spelling lessons, if I spelled a word wrong, and if I would do really badly on a test, which spelling and English and grammar were not my area of expertise. How I became a talk show host and actually tried to use grammatical sentences properly, I'm not quite sure. But if I misspelled a word, then we were able to do a few points of extra credit in order to get some of those points back if you ended up writing the word like 100 times on a piece of paper the next day and turning it back into the class. Every once in a while, they would allow us to do that. And that would help with your writing. You had to write it in cursive. You had to write it a certain way, and you had to do it numerous times over and over and over and over and over. I don't know how many people do that any longer. But we don't. We tweet, where we have 160 characters. And I think they're expanding that now because people want more time and more words and more phrases to be able to put on there. But you have 160 characters. And if you can't fit your entire message on there, then you begin to abbreviate. You text to where you need to communicate back and forth nonstop very, very quickly. And sometimes you abbreviate in order to get your point across. Or you don't even say okay any longer. You just give the thumbs up emoji, or you give the smiley face emoji and you send that to them, because no longer do we spend the time to do the quality texting or the quality communication. When texting first came out with the flip phones, that's kind of when I was in high school, was the flip phones that came out, and the razors, if you remember those. That was the big thing. That was the cool hip thing. And people would hate texting me because I would try to spell out everything and do the really long sentence as opposed to K. Thumbs up, awesome. And I didn't get it. I was not used to that, and people didn't like to text me a whole lot. So an English teacher came out and made the comments on the 5 reasons why students today cannot write, and this is something you can do at home because we really have to just take the responsibility back to the home front, do we not? Number 1, overemphasis on testing. Standardized appears to have exploded in the past decade, largely due to the standards brought on through the No Child Left Behind and Race to the Top acts. Parameters believe that increased testing and primary reason writing scores have declined over the same time period. When we're so focused on testing instead of actually getting the information out, then you kind of lose the priority of what's actually important to you. Increased focus on other subjects. Because testing is largely focused on reading, math, and science, teachers have devoted more time teaching these subjects. As a result, writing gets pushed off to the side. How many times do you actually have to write a long essay as a child any longer? Ill-prepared teachers. As Parameters notes, recent studies have found that many teachers simply are not equipped with good writing skills themselves, and as such, pass the inability on to their students. Number 4, not enough practice. Citing a 2015 Education Trust survey, less than 10% of assignments required writing longer than a single paragraph, and nearly 20% of assignments require no writing at all. In fact, only 1% of assignments require students to think for extended periods of time, the kind of thinking required to plan, draft, revise, publish meaningful writing. And number 5, increased emphasis on technology. When we have social media, when we have texting, when we have technology that we need to focus on how to build an app on there, when we have the keypad that where you can scribble on the letters and it'll actually phrase the word out that you're trying to message, you don't have to think about the proper grammar. You have autocorrect to where it does it for you to where you don't even have to think about these things. With all of this technology, we're losing the ability to just write a simple letter. And I admit I'm not a writer. I do not like writing. I've always tried to fight writing, but it's something that you should focus on. You should practice. How many people write books anymore? Well, they're still book writers, but a lot of times you can get the program to where you can talk like I do on the radio. I can say what I want to say, and it transcribes it into wording, and then you just go through and edit it for the grammatical issues, and you usually have your publisher go and do something like that. The young generation, they don't care because they've never had to do it. And again, I reiterate, how many actually use cursive any longer? And if you can't write cursive, how can you read cursive? And if you can't read cursive, how can you read the original Constitution in order to understand your rights? And if you don't understand them, and only the elite understand what it is, that reminds of back in the day when only the priests knew what the Bible said to try and tell people what God told you in order to keep them in fear. Back in the day, you remember that during the Renaissance time? It could be the same way with, we know what your laws are, we know what your rights are, and you have to trust us in order to tell you what those actually are. It's a very scary thought, isn't it? It may be taking it to the extreme, but generations from now, if they don't know anything about cursive, how are they going to read the Constitution? How are they going to read the Declaration of Independence? How are they going to understand what those rights actually are? 7218255. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, good morning, sir. It's Drew.
Hey, Drew. How are you, sir?
Excellent. What you're talking about, by the way, as you noted, is being driven out by Common Core because of the testing. And if your school says, well, we don't use Common Core, we use what the state requires, well, guess what? The state just simply renamed Common Core. So
Right.
That's part of the problem.
And again, the state doesn't have your children in mind. It's about the numbers. It's about the blip in the data, and they want to do whatever they can, along with, by the way, the politics behind that blip in the data to be able to advocate for what special interest is going to get more money. When you look at it through that lens of government bureaucracy, when they say it's about the children, you know it's not really about the children in any way, shape, or form.
So 2 quick items to go along with this. Number 1, I cannot tell you the number of business meetings I've been at where we have somebody who's giving some information that's important, and the person that's around me is a business meeting. It's something where people are supposed to be getting information. Sit there. That's it. They just sit there. Mm-hmm. They don't take notes. One of the things that they have found is not only if you take notes do you recall the information better, but if you take notes in cursive, you're utilizing 2 portions of your brain, the left and the right, because you're having to write it in a script format that uses the left part of the brain, and you're using your hand and writing it down, which is the right part of the brain, you're going to retain 90% more than what you would by just taking notes, or even worse, just sitting there. Okay?
Absolutely.
So that's important. The second thing, on a more grand scale, award-winning author Harlan Ellison has written for decades. To this day, he still writes on a manual typewriter, does not use email. And he said this specifically because of one reason.
Sure.
When you write something out and you don't have a send button sitting right there, you have to think about what you're writing. You have to consider your words before you pass them on to whoever you're writing to.
Sure.
Well, in this age that we have right now of social media,
you don't think before you speak.
Exactly, micro-fast communications. How much are we really enabling the court of social justice to try people and convict them instead of the rule of law? Now all it takes is an accusation, and a person's life is ruined. And maybe it happened only because we hit a send button instead of thinking about what we were writing.
That's a good point, Drew. I appreciate that. No, you're right. So let's just get it out there, and whether it's the media reporting on something before they actually do the investigative journalism for it, whether it's someone actually filtering what they say before just spouting it out on social media because they feel tough, no matter what it is, that you're right. I mean, we don't think before we speak any longer. Let's get it out there. Let's do that 160-character tweet. Let's rile people up, throw the wrench in the system, cause some issues just because we can, rather than thinking about it, and we're really not doing it in a grammatically proper way in the first place. Makes sense. Caller number one, it's that time as we've been doing. We got one more week, a few more copies of the book here. It's time for your chance to win Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. As we talk about budgetary issues at the statewide level, as we talk about budgetary issues at the federal level, I think it's time for us to be financially savvy ourselves. What do you think? Brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. Appreciate those guys partnering up with us. Let's get caller number one right now. Caller number one, 721-8255-721-TALK. I got a very simple question to ask you, and you can get your very own copy of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover book. It's over 5 million copies sold. It's the one that he gives out all the time when people are beginning their baby steps, when people are beginning to get out of debt, and you can have a copy. It's very simple for you. All you got to do is give me a call right now. I'll ask you a simple question. We'll get you a copy of this. It's a lot of fun. And I think that we're actually going to work on trying to get more copies of this and mail them to our state legislators, every one of them, and see what they think about that when we go into the legislative session. Maybe I'll work with Dave Ramsey's people, see if we can do that. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But let's go to caller number one. Let's talk and see if they can get a copy of Dave Ramsey's book right now. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Sean.
Sean, how are you, my friend?
I am doing fantastic today.
Hey, I love it. Appreciate you calling. All right, your chance to be able to win Dave Ramsey's book, Total Money Makeover. If you listen to Dave Ramsey, you'll know this is a very simple one here for you. He has the baby steps. Baby step number one is being able to get $1,000 in your emergency fund. What is baby step number two?
It is the debt snowball.
The debt snowball, baby. That's what it is right there. And you just won yourself a copy of Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. Sean, hang tight. We'll get your info here off the air. We got 4 more copies. We're going to do this throughout the end of the week. So if you didn't get this one, don't worry. We'll get you again tomorrow. But hey, that's a great way for you to start getting financially savvy. It's a great time. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQM. Congrats to Sean again for winning the Dave Ramsey Total Money Makeover book, brought to you by You Build It of Wichita. We love having those guys partner up with us on that giveaway. We got a few more copies. This week's the last week for that. This portion of The Voice of Reason brought to you by the AARP, whether it's the Fraud Watch Network, the Retirement Calculator, getting prepared for the future, or just trying to enjoy the community. Whatever the case is, your opportunity is with the AARP. Check them out, aarp.org/KS. For the state of Kansas, Marin Turner back on the line with us, as she is every Monday morning. Marin, how are you today?
I'm great, Andy. How are you?
Hey, we're living it. It's Thanksgiving next week already. It's hard to believe. So, again, this year just flying right on by. You guys staying busy as you always do. You have an event as you do every coming up on Tuesday with the kind of the Morning Joe, the morning coffee, and Veterans Day last weekend as well, which you guys work a lot with a lot of the veterans in the area.
Yes, we do. We think that it's there are all kinds of ways to say thank you to military vets. And so we just want to remind everybody that, here's an opportunity for you to honor your favorite military vet by sending in a video, 1 minute or less, or you can send in a photo essay with a photo and just a few lines about why the person in your life is so special and why you think they should be honored. And the top 3 videos will win $1,000, and the top 4 essays will win $750. So we hope that people will join in on our 25 days of honoring a military vet. You can make your submission through Saturday the 25th.
How fun. I'm glad you mentioned that because we just got done with a segment talking about education in the state and how we don't write any longer, and people are losing the ability to actually write an essay or write a paper or write a letter to one another. And this is the perfect way to maybe practice that a little bit again, to be able to write a letter talking about the veteran in your life and how much they mean to you. Not only is it a good deed to remind individuals and remember that, but also to get that practice in writing as well.
Sure, it's a great way, and you can be as creative as you want to. Just make sure you talk about the person, why you think they should be honored, and then just go for it. It's a fun way to, write and to increase your writing skills.
Absolutely. I love it. Also coming up, as you mentioned, on Tuesdays, you have your event every morning in Tuesdays in Atwater. Talk about, again, what people can go and do, have some morning coffee, and chat with you guys.
Yes, every third Tuesday we have AARP Day at the Atwater Community Center. And this month we are, in addition to having our coffee and all in the morning, we are offering a free workshop called Finance is 50 Plus. So if you're one of the 20 million older adults that, that struggles to make ends meet, or if you're just wondering how to take better control of your finances, this is a really great workshop to come on out to. It covers the basics such as goal setting and budget planning. We'll give you 6 tips for getting better organized. We'll talk about debt reduction and credit repair. There's an American proverb that says, "In God we trust, all others must pay cash." So if you'd like to come out and learn more about credit repair and debt reduction, that would be great. And then we'll also talk about asset building and protection. So it's a free training workshop. You'll get some workbooks that you can take with you to help you after you leave the workshop. And then there's also an opportunity for one-on-one mentoring over the telephone once you take this workshop. So I hope people will come out. It's a free workshop, again, for people that would like to be smarter with their money. So if you'd like more information, just log on to our website at www.aarp.org/KS, or you can call us at 866-448-3619.
It's never too late. As you mentioned, 50 plus to be able to get your financial situation in order, to be able to talk about investments, to be able to talk about your future. It's never too late. Even being 50 plus, and you may think, you know what, I've run out of time, I can't do it. There's always a way. So it's a great workshop for people to get involved with.
Absolutely. It's a great way, like I said, whether you're struggling right now or you just want to get some smarter money tips so that you can manage your money better. Come on out, ask your questions, get answers, and hopefully have a better and more sound financial future. That's
what it's all about. Marin Turner with the AARP. Always a pleasure. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next Monday before Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Andy. Bye-bye.
Always a pleasure there. Marin Turner with the AARP. Check them out, aarp.org/KS. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up in a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
The cat's out of the box, ladies and gentlemen. The hidden secret agenda that actually agencies are doing well, that we've increased spending across the board 1% to 2% every single year for every agency in the state government. If they continue to try and rail on the same things the way they've been doing for years, they're going to fail, because people are beginning to wake up and realize that they have been lying. The propaganda they've been spouting has been not true, and that they're going to get in trouble for it.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray.
to you. Welcome into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. It is a Monday morning. It is the last full week before the holidays begin with Thanksgiving next Thursday. Can you believe it? Already. It goes by way too fast. Welcome into it. This is the Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier. It's an honor to have you along with the ride here as we move forward, advancing conservatism. We've been doing, as you know, the Dave Ramsey book brought to you by You Build It of Wichita, and we give away a book to listeners every day. We got 4 more days to go, 4 more copies of the book, and it's going to be a lot of fun to do it. I have a question for you, though, and we've been thinking about it. What if, going into the legislative session, if we're able to get this, if we're able to make it happen, to send a copy of the book to every single state and to every single Senate and House member in the state legislature as a reminder for them of fiscal accountability? What do you think? Do you think it's going to fly? Do you think that we'd be able to pull something off like that? I think it would be a lot of fun. I want to know your thoughts on that. 721-825-5721-TALK. It's not just a Monday, but it's time for us to get pumped up. It's time for us to set the tone for the whole week because we just have a little fun with it, don't we? Let's utilize it before the holidays begin next week. Let's start off a Monday morning.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started. Let's get it started.
There it is, 721-825-5721-TALK. If you want to join in, shoot me a message on Facebook on the Voice of Reason page, on the KQAM page, and on the Twitter at Hoosier Reason. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling as well. The first Facebook Live feed, if you were trying to watch that, for whatever reason, the computer felt like doing its nice little reboot. So it is up and rolling on a new feed now. Just refresh your KQAM page, and you'll be able to follow that one. But the first one, I don't know what happened. It is up and going. You just got to find Monday morning part dose of the Voice of Reason on Facebook Live. I do want to play this. I am excited. He was in town last week on Friday as he was wrapping up his 105 county tour, trying to bring in lost private property of individuals from the state, whether it's a deposit to different utility companies, whether it is whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And Congressman Estes, then State Treasurer Ron Estes, did a fantastic job trying to bring people the lost property that they had. Lost money, a little bit. It could be just a couple bucks, but it's important. And it shows a sign that the government's not going to just consume it and take it because it's there and because people forget all about it. It's a little chump change, whatever. People aren't gonna miss it, so we're just going to take it. There are many states that I know would be more than happy to just consume that and say that it's for the state's good. We're not like that. We actually like to give people back their money, which is why it's so frustrating looking at some of these tax hikes and the tax rates and what's going to happen with the government spending that continues to increase year over year over year. So we talked with Jake LaTurner the first time, by the way, and welcomed him into the state treasurer position since the transition did happen, and looking forward to some of what he's going to be doing as state treasurer. This was our discussion we had as he swung in studios on Friday afternoon. The new state treasurer for the state of Kansas, Mr. Jake LaTurner, is in studio with us. Jake, how are you, my friend?
Doing very well. Thank you for having me, Andy.
Hey, it's a great honor to be able to talk to you. Congrats on the new position. It's really exciting to see where the state is going when we talk about, well, the tax revenue is kind of a legislative thing. We don't need to go there. But talking about being able to pay our bills, being able to give money back, which is what you're doing right now on tour here. And I know Ron did a phenomenal job doing that as well. How's the tour going so far?
It's going really well. So our plan was to do 105 counties. I don't think Kansans want their public servants sitting in Topeka in the echo chamber all the time. I think they want them to be out meeting people and hearing where people are on the issues. And so The first thing that I did when I came into office was say, all right, let's plan a 105 county tour. So we've done 105 counties in 5 months, a little under 5 months. And today is the 105th county. So we've been out returning unclaimed property, talking to folks about the Kansas Learning Quest accounts, helping folks save for education. And the Kansas ABLE Act, helping folks living with a disability save for their future.
Ron was really good. Congressman Estes was really good at doing that as well, returning that unclaimed property. Where did that start? Is that something that he did the big push when he was in? Did the prior state treasurer before that get that started? Because I know I remember when he was running for state treasurer years and years ago, I was out in Garden City, and that was his big push then, and he did a phenomenal job. But I know you're doing that really good as well right now, too.
Yeah, it's a wonderful initiative. Over $350 million of unclaimed property in the state. And it can be confusing for folks. So, I mean, what I tell them is it could be anything. It could be a dormant checking account, an old utility deposit, an old checking account, an life insurance policy. We even get safety deposit boxes in the Treasurer's office, which is really interesting to kind of pour through and see what folks deemed worthy of saving. But companies are required after 5 years of not being able to find the proper owner to send it to the state, and then it's our job. And so we're doing really everything we can to push that and make sure we're getting money back to the right people.
And you said right now over $350 million.
Exactly right, yes.
Wow. And
it's a lot.
That is a lot of money. And a lot of people, as you mentioned, a deposit that people didn't think of beforehand. It's just stuff that you normally wouldn't fathom. Oh, hey, I got money sitting out there that I need to collect.
Absolutely right. When I became treasurer, I actually had unclaimed property myself. It was an old utility deposit from when I was in college. In college you move and it just never made its way to me. So I had about $42 in unclaimed property, and it's easy to do. You go to kansascash.com, search to find if you have any, verify that you are who you say you are, obviously, and we'll get you a check in about 10 days.
How old is some of the unclaimed property that you've seen so far?
We've had some older ones. We've had some older ones, but for us in the last 5 months, we've returned a record amount. We've returned over $9 million. What's really interesting to us, and I think it shows the success of us out traveling and actually using a little shoe leather to get the word out, is we've had over 1 million names searched on kansascash.com.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. And the average property, I had a low one, the average property that we return is $240. So that's not an insignificant amount of money to anyone.
Not at all. Not at all. Let's talk about you for a second here. Going into this position, your background a little bit. I know that you were involved with the legislature for a little bit, and Governor Brownback appointed you to this one. So it was a great step here, and you're going to be around for a long while, hopefully, here. But talk about your background a little bit.
Sure. So I grew up in southeast Kansas, a small mining town called Galena. It's about as far southeast as you can go, 5 minutes from Missouri, 5 minutes from Oklahoma. My dad was the mayor of my hometown. So I kind of grew up going to city council meetings and things like this. I kind of had the public service bug, I guess. So I ran for the legislature in 2012 and was reelected to the Senate in 2016. Had a great experience there. Learned a lot. I felt like we got a lot done. But no, serving in a statewide position like this is a tremendous honor, and I'm doing everything I can to show Kansans the respect they deserve by working really hard.
Absolutely. Well, and that's what we're seeing out of the Treasury Department from Congressman Estes when he was there, and from you already. You having that background in the legislature is good because you kind of know the quote-unquote little bit of the uncertainties that come from the legislature when we talk about tax rates and when we talk about the revenues coming into the state, which can make your job very difficult at times, can it not?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the legislature sets the tax rates. The legislature sets the spending rates. It's our job to make sure we're keeping track of the money that's there and that we're paying the bills. And so it can be a moving target depending on where revenues are.
Mm-hmm. Looking over the next couple of years here, and I don't want to go from the political side since you're really not in a political oriented office, but the uncertainties. We have the potential for more spending when they talk about expanding Medicaid in the next year. We're going to talk about corrections facilities and the pay raises for the corrections officers potentially. We're going to be talking about who knows what's going to happen with education funding in the year with the Kansas Supreme Court. With all of these uncertainties, and then a 2-year outlook with a 2-year budget of going into 2019 with a potential shortfall again. What can we do from your position, how to brace ourselves and prepare for what may come that way?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, in Kansas, we aren't growing. We're in danger of losing one of our congressional seats because the population is just not there. I think it's likely in the 2030 census that we will if things continue on the current trend. So we have to be about growth. Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, the government only has so many levers it can pull. And one of those is to make sure that we are keeping tax rates low, putting money back in the hands of Kansans so they can spend it the way they see fit. They do a much better job than the government does. In the Senate, I was a conservative legislator across the board. I think that we need to keep tax rates low. I was a big proponent of giving Kansans tools and the right to vote when it comes to property tax increases. I was the only A-plus rated senator from the NRA. Received the Pro-Life Hero Award from Kansans for Life my last term there.
Fantastic.
And so I bring that up just to say it isn't a political office necessarily in the treasurer's office, but I feel an obligation as a statewide official and somebody who's out there a lot to talk about conservative principles,
sure,
to spread the good news, and to do everything I can to encourage decision makers across the street in the Capitol building to make the right decisions.
Well, and you get the grunt of it with the decisions they make. That falls on you to be able to kind of put the jigsaw puzzle pieces together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, you can only increase taxes or cut spending. Those are the choices. We just had a big tax increase last year. I was proud to vote against it. It was one of the last votes that I made. But we've got to look at the spending side. And when you have the Supreme Court ordering potentially hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in increased funding to schools, it can be tricky.
That's very
to
true,
say the least.
Exactly. With the tour that you're doing right now, you mentioned this is the final stop for these counties. How often do you plan on doing something like this?
Well, we're going to finish this one today, and we're going to immediately start planning the next one. So I think that we got to make sure that we're running a good, efficient office for the people of Kansas in Topeka. But beyond that, I don't think Kansans should have to call some distant bureaucrat in Topeka to experience the services of our office.
Sure.
So we're going to be out. We're going to be visible. We're going to be out there in people's communities in their home counties so they can come see us.
I love it. Well, we really appreciate what you guys do on the front. As we mentioned, it's the side of the government not a whole lot of people pay attention to, but is one of the most important pieces of this. Just kind of curiosity, the regions that you've been to, where have some of the most pieces of the unclaimed property come from?
Obviously the larger populated counties have more money. At Sedgwick County, there's over $41 million, so that's a big piece of the pie. But no, it's been great, and it's been interesting to see in the different places. Sometimes when you go to the smaller populated counties, you get the biggest turnout. You know what I mean? So it's been really great.
Well, good. At least you're seeing some activism. You're seeing people excited of you coming out there, people engaging with you, showing up to the events that you're hosting, which means that they're engaged, active, and want to be participating in the solutions here. Absolutely.
And what I remind people is that this is not our money. This is the people of Kansas's money. So we're going to do everything we can to return it all. I hope we can return it all.
Do other states do this too?
Absolutely, yeah.
They do? Okay, good. Because you can imagine some deep blue states, I'm sure, be like, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't have any of your money here. We're just going to spend it.
We could spend this better than you. Yeah, sure.
Well, imagine that, a conservative actually handling finances for a government. That's what we need all across the board. Jake LaTurner, State Treasurer for the state of Kansas. Thank you so much for swinging by studio, my friend. I know it's been a long tour. Get back up there, have a little rest, although, I'm sure Topeka, like Washington, D.C., sometimes has that swamp feel to it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. You got to watch out for that.
There you go. Be a little careful with that. Jake, we really appreciate you coming by the studio, my friend. We'll get you back on the show again soon.
Thank you, Andy.
There it is. That's State Treasurer Jake LaTurner. He swung by the studio on Friday. Had to get that out for you. Great information from him. Thanks again for him getting that position. Congrats to him and doing what he's doing up there, continuing on the legacy of Congressman Ron Estes in the State Treasurer position in the state of Kansas. Lots more to get to. Your thoughts and calls. Plus, when we come back, we have not done it yet today, and it's about that time. It's time for the KQAM KGSO Turkey Drop, and we'll do that when we come back. Stay tuned. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM. Happy Monday morning to you, starting off the week the proper way. Fastest growing radio show here in the Wichita area, Kansas and beyond. We appreciate that. It's all because of you trying to get the information out there, doing what we do best, which is advancing conservatism, encouraging activism, being the catalyst of the local movement. It's that time. I think it's time for us to have a little fun with it. We do this now through the end of this week, really. You have a limited time left, and you can get an opportunity to be able to get your very own Thanksgiving turkey. Hat tips, KQAM, and all of our wonderful sponsors, which, by the way, are Augusta Flight Center, Just Right Auto Repair, Best Friends Pet Clinic, MJ's Truck Repair of Moundridge, Kansas, Croft Lumber of Heston, Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, Kiter Nursery and Firewood, Davis Liquor Outlet, Scott Child's Old Time Clock Shop, Spears Restaurant and Pie Shop, and Derby Mattress. By the way, the turkey is brought to you and provided by Jim's Apple Market of Cheney. They're open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. We appreciate them providing us the turkeys. Here's how it works. We've had 4 of them locked in so far. We have 5. We got 6 more to go. in order for you to be able to get your turkey. These are preordained, so we know exactly which one it's going to land on here, and it's up to you to be able to guess. You have a 1 in 3 chance of winning. I give you 3 options. You tell me which one the turkey is going to land on this time, hovering over and flying down. And if you guess correctly, then you, my friends, win yourself your very own Thanksgiving turkey coming up for next week. So let's go right to the phones here and take caller number 1, 721-8255, 721-TALK if you want to join in. And I would encourage individuals to maybe line up in case the first caller does not get it right. But let's give it a shot here right off the bat. Good morning. What's your name?
Becky.
Hey, good morning, Becky. How are you today?
I'm great.
Hey, very good. All right, here it is. We have 3 options. It's your choice to guess which one it may be. And your options this morning, Just Right, Auto Repair, Scott Child's Old Time Clock Shop, and Derby Mattress. Which one do you, Becky, believe it's going to land on this morning?
It has to be Scott Childs.
It's got to be Scott Child's Old Time Clock Shop. Let's give it a shot here. It's flying over. I don't think it's a helicopter. I think it's more like a drone. We need to get in the 21st century here. The drone dropping the turkey on top of the business. Is it going to be Scott Childs?
Oh, no.
Oh! We've had a few times where they haven't won it right off the bat here. Let's give it a shot and go right here, and let's do this quickly before the bottom of the hour. Good morning. What's your name?
This is CJ.
Hey, how are you, my friend?
Wonderful. Yourself, Andy?
Very good. You got 20 seconds here. What do you think? Just Right Auto Repair or Derby Mattress? Your thoughts?
I'm going to go with Just Right Auto Repair.
Just Right Auto Repair. We got to give it a fly, and, well, we don't have time for the entire sound here, but it's going to drop. The turkey's going to fall. Is it going to be on Just Right? There it is. I love it. CJ, hang on the line here. Bottom of the hour news. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The fastest growing radio show in Kansas.
What? How's he do that?
That's what I'm talking about.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up the show today on the Big Talker KQAM. Appreciate you hanging out with us. Congratulations to BJ being able to win that turkey for a Monday. We got just a few left. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left. So you still got an opportunity, and we'll do some more tomorrow. Stay tuned in for that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've had some people be kind of the nerds about this, trying to write down because it gets narrowed down. It lands on one of our participating sponsors once each time. So when we do this, they're already preordained to which one it's going to land on. And it's just up to you to be able to decide it and guess it rightly. Again, thanks to all our sponsors, Augusta Flight Center, which, by the way, it already landed on. Just Right Auto Repair, it just landed on today. Best Friends Pet Clinic, it already landed on. Croft Lumber of Heston, which it's already landed on. And Spears Restaurant and Pie Shop, which it's already landed on. Now, the upcoming ones you got to stay tuned in for. MJ's Truck Repair, Mound Ridge. Kennedy Tire and Auto Care Center, Kiter Nursery and Firewood, Davis Liquor Outlet, Scott Child's Old Time Clock Shop, and Derby Mattress are still the ones pending. Which ones are going to land on tomorrow? Only time will tell, so stay tuned in for that tomorrow, and we'll have a little more fun. So thanks to all those guys, and of course, Jim's Apple Market of Cheney providing us the turkeys for that turkey drop. So we'll do that again tomorrow. Stay tuned in for that. But with that, let's go right back to the phones here. Anything you want to, it's open lines to you. Thanks again to Jake LaTurner stopping by. We chatted with him on Friday. We aired that interview at the beginning of this hour. It's open lines to you for the rest of it here. 721-8255-721-TALK, and let's go right to it. Good morning. What's your name? Hello. Going once, going twice. All right, give me a call back. I want to hear from you there. Let's go back and go to another line here. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name? Hello. All right, guess we lost both of them there. You're more than welcome to call me back, 721-8255-721-TALK if you want to. And let's take, maybe they're trying to get back a hold of me here. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Andy. This is Ron.
Ron, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good.
Very good.
Here a few years ago, one of the several of the South Central Kansas legislators, House and Senate, were up in Andover, and there were several young girls in high school that was questioning why that the legislators couldn't give pay for all free any kind of activity that kids do in school for football
Kind
and all
of
that.
the extracurricular stuff, sure.
The extracurricular stuff. And anyway, this one legislator explained to the girls how that they appropriate the money, the legislators do,
Sure.
and then they hand that money over to the state school board.
Sure.
And the state school board then makes equitable amongst the schools because they disperse the money, okay, and then the school board decides down at the local level how that money is going to be spent.
Right. So you're right. The state just says, all right, here's how much money is going to go towards education as a lump sum. Here you go, state school board. Now you're going to decide, and this they say, okay, you know what, we're going to break it up into the different districts, the local school districts that we need to, and break it up amongst the suitable and equitable funding according to the state constitution. There you go. And then from there, then the local school board's what breaks it up into the different departments and what they're going to cover, what they're not going to cover. And they're the ones that actually get the nitty-gritty details of what they're going to do with their own school district.
So pray tell me why that the legislators are being sued for the equitable part when the equitable part is done by the state school board.
Well, that's a good question. And what it sounds like is that we have too many administrations or too many departments or agencies that are tied all into one trying to work together, which government, as inefficient as it already is, we don't need that. So, I think that we need to get rid of the state Department of Education, just allot it, have the legislators, who are a little bit more accountable since we actually elect them, be able to decide exactly how much money each district's going to get based on their formula that they come up with. And then we have the more of the transparency and the accountability come to the local school district would be my solution to that if we're going to talk about suitability and equitability when it comes to the local school districts. Because you're right. I mean, it's going to too many filters here. And then we try and blame the legislators for not having enough money because the Department of Education doesn't want to allot it the way that it actually needs to disperse it among the different districts.
Yeah, because like I said, the Constitution sets up the school board,
sure,
state school board. So, you know, if I agree with you, if we're going to get sued anyway, well, let's get rid of the state.
Why don't we sue
school
them?
board, and then that way, if they sue us, we know we're the ones that's doing the equitable part.
It's a great point. You would think that you're right. If we're not doing it suitably or equitably to be able to break it up into the different school districts, that we would blame the state school board for that lack of ability to do so, as opposed to blaming the legislature. Now, you know that the school board at the state level is going to come back and say, well, we can't disperse it and distribute it the way we need to, and redistribute it, if you want to put it that way, to the way we need to, because we don't have enough money and we can't do it the way we need to. So therefore, the state, again, tries to go back to Congress, and it's very easy to do, being a Republican majority in Congress, to pass off the blame to those guys as opposed to saying, hey, our lack of accountability and our big spending habits as progressives in a government agency is the blame here. They're not going to blame it on that, of course.
Well, thanks, Andy, for all you do, and thanks for putting up with me when I call in.
No, I love it, Ron. You make some great points. I love it when you do call in. Continue to do so, Ron. I appreciate that. 721-825-5721 Talk. You're right. I mean, it's a really great point. Why do we blame the legislature when the state school board's the one that actually distributes it to the different school districts? You would think that would be simple, but again, they don't like to do that because, well, hey, it's easier to blame the Republicans who just aren't giving them enough money, right? It's the fear factor of, oh, the kids are suffering because the Republicans won't give them money. Let's go back to the phones here. Shelby, good morning. What's your name?
Carlos.
Hey, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I was wondering if you got slapped on this weekend.
Matt Schlapp, that's right. I tell you what, that was a really great event on, what was that, on Thursday last week with the American Conservative Union. I did go to that. I did attend that on Thursday night. It was a blast. And
I had a blast too, man.
Matt Schlapp, I tell you what, he is a fireball, and we need more conservatives like that who just aren't afraid to go onto any kind of media outlet to destroy them.
Yeah, I went to high school with him. And I took my high school year. He was a year older than me. And I talked to him after the event, and I tried to get him to talk some high school stuff, man. But he's like, "Oh no, what's going on with you now?" Because everybody's ears just wide open. When I'm like, "Hey, remember me from high school?
That's
Everyone's
awesome.
like, oh my gosh, he's going to bring up some stuff. And I'm like, I don't have any dirt on him or anything, but he was a good guy. He was a good guy in high school. He was funny in high school, and he's still funny now, and he was cool. I wish I would have gotten to talk to his wife. But what an incredible group of people to have here in Wichita, man. It was incredible to have that go off so smooth. The thing that blew me away is about security, more or less, the event, and there wasn't security.
Sure.
You know?
The lack thereof.
It's like, that was kind of scary. I walked in there, and I have a concealed carry, and I left my thing locked in the car. And then I walked in there, I was thinking there'd be like some metal detectors or something, you know?
Well,
especially with Brownback supposed to be there too, you know?
Potentially, sure. No, you're right. I tell you what, they put on such a great event, and like I said before, I don't know if you've ever been to CPAC at the DC level there, and it is just like that, where they had the panel discussion, and they'll go back and forth from panels to one person trying to talk to the crowd and rally, and just imagine that scene with about 2,000 people in a huge conference room, and there's about 5 of those conference rooms with that many people in each room going on for about 10 hours a day. It is the coolest thing you'll ever experience. Again,
yeah,
if
I would love to go.
Oh, if you want to get fueled,
I looked at ticket prices. It's pretty pricey, but it's a cheaper price for one day and stuff. But.
Sure, you can definitely go, and it is pricier. And now, if you're a college student, I mean, we got to go because it was like $20 $25 a ticket for the college students. But you're right, it is a little bit on the pricier end there. But definitely, if you're engaged in politics in any way, shape, or form, the American Conservative Union does a phenomenal job putting on events like that, recharging your political battery. And Matt Schlapp, I mean, he does a great job of that. I got to say, we are lucky in the Wichita area to have individuals like him originating from this area, and for us being so politically engaged, for them to want to come to the Wichita area to put on an event like that. So that was really fun.
Yeah, he went to Capon with me, actually, where he graduated in 86. I graduated in 87. But I was in Spanish club for 3 years with him, so I hung out with him probably at least an hour a week for 3 years.
How cool. I love it. Yeah. Carlos, I appreciate the call, my friend. I'm glad you enjoyed that. That was a blast. There were a couple hundred people there too, so it was a great turnout. Everybody that did, I appreciate you doing so. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully you do get to just feel better and feel recharged. You're right, though, no security because, well, it's a conservative event, and I don't know if you could have carried your concealed carry in there. I guess on WSU campus, I guess you couldn't have, but they don't. The only time, I'll tell you, at CPAC, the only time that they actually screened me for security was when President Bush was speaking. We had to go through the whole metal detector thing to get into that conference room during that year to hear President Bush speak. But other than that, I don't remember a whole lot of security even at the CPAC conventions, just because, hey, we're conservative-oriented individuals and we're not afraid to do what it needs to do to not let something like that happen. Let's go back to the phones here, shall we? 721-8255-72 Talk. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. This is Joe.
Hey, good morning, Joe. How are you?
And regarding the sales tax that you have said, in effect, are a good thing, a good way to raise taxes, do you understand how that works?
Now, hold on. I didn't say that sales tax was a good way to generate revenue. That was the government that's been talking about sales tax, and that's why we see one of the highest sales tax rates in the country. I'm not a fan of that. Now, I would be more open to sales tax if we would get rid of the income tax, we went straight to a fair tax system, in that sense that I can see the majority of the revenue in the heart of it coming from sales tax. But having the highest sales tax rate in the country, along with increasing income rates, I am not a fan of that in any way, shape, or form. I never said that I'm a big fan of big sales tax rates.
Well, what I'm speaking of is where you mentioned that sales tax being voted on in the last election, the number that it passed.
Sure.
Well, the way that works is the city will say, okay, we need X number of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're going to vote on the sales tax. Now, you can either vote to give us the money that way, or we're going to raise your property tax.
Sure.
So right away, the argument isn't, do we need the money? It's how we're going to give it to you.
How we're going to get the money. Exactly. And that's, I don't know if you remember, there's a quote from Ronald Reagan, and I'm paraphrasing here, but talking about the government needs to have the mentality of what we're going to do with the money given to us, as opposed to finding the money for the projects that we want to have. And that's the difference in governing as a progressive, needing the priority being the government and the government spending, as opposed to the private sector, and then whatever tax revenue we receive, we'll find ways to spend that money properly and appropriately for the citizens. And you're right, that's a big thing, because in the last election last week, the special election, there were 10 cities with sales tax issues and referendums on the ballot. all 10 of them ended up passing. And you're right, because if they didn't get it to the sales tax, they would want to raise property taxes, which they don't have to do a whole lot of oversight with. So it's easier for us to say, yeah, go ahead and just raise my sales tax, as opposed to, well, you're going to raise my property taxes. It's going to be more difficult to fight that later on. But that's the mentality. Yeah, we're going to get the revenue one way or another, as opposed to, do you want us to get the revenue because we would like to try and do these projects, so is it okay or not? And they don't do that.
Well, you're absolutely right there. But just remember, no matter how much money you give the government, they'll always find a way to spend it.
Well, they'll always find a way to spend it, and then always find a way to need more of it, because it's never enough.
Well, till next time.
Until next time.
Until next time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Thank you now.
Hey, Joe, I appreciate the call. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, look at the education system, for example. What do? They have the largest amount of money going into the system. We have the largest operating cash reserves in state history, hitting $2 billion, $120 million-ish in the Wichita School District. And what did we see on here? We saw 8 different school bond issues in this last election. Luckily, only 2 of them passed. But what are they doing? Oh, we need to improve our buildings. Why is that not going through the regular process of the education funding to be able to improve our schools? Oh, we need to improve our athletic fields or athletic departments or our athletic buildings. Why is that not part of the regular spending? Look, again, we spend our income tax, we spend our sales tax revenue, we spend our property tax revenue, all going portions of it to education. All of it. Not all of the property tax, but a portion of the property tax, a portion of the sales tax, a portion of the income tax. Every sliver gets to go into the pot for education in some way, shape, or form. So why, if we just spent billions of dollars, literally billions of dollars in education from income tax and from sales tax, why do we need to have a local bond issue to raise your property taxes in order to spend more of it, because they never got enough? I don't understand why they need to have their hands in every little portion of that. Either do property tax, or do sales tax, or do income tax, or just depend on the federal government or the state government, however you do it. But why get all of them? Why? Because that's their perfect way. They get their hands in all of it. Hey, we get to sit on cash reserves because we're scared of the school closing, quote unquote, with the Supreme Court. So we're going to sit on it. But we don't have enough for hike and salaries for the teachers, which is needed. But we don't have enough money for it, so we need more money. And then, oh, by the way, we need to improve our schools and our school buildings for security enhancements. Okay. Yeah, we want to keep our kids safe. Why isn't that in the normal operating procedures for every year? We allot an X amount of money to be able to do the improvements or whatever we need to do, upgrades within the school district for the buildings. I don't understand why that's a normal process, as opposed to, well, let's create another bond. Once the bond expires, we need to create a new bond to continue on, so that way you never see that money come back to you. We're just going to continue it on. And oh, by the way, you want to start a new one too? Because I know that once that one's done, I'm sure that one will just end once it's all said and done, right? Yeah. 9 minutes to the top of the hour. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
There's a new movement that people are trying, and it might be a good way to make some awareness of political events. Maybe you want to try this. It'd be kind of fun, and along with it, it'd be delicious and tasty as well. But individuals who may be in support of the abortion thing, or may just be against the animal thing, animal rights, don't want to be hurting the animals. There's a movement, or at least people are trying this and having people freak out about it, people who may not be aware of how animals actually produce, that sort of thing, where they're putting a Cornish game hen inside of the turkey and then making the young girls try and carve the turkey, and they freak out because they're like, oh my God, there's a baby turkey inside the turkey. And you can see the facial expression. It's fantastic to watch. I'll share it on my page on Facebook if you want to watch it. It's kind of entertaining, and it might bring some light to maybe the abortion issue a little bit during a holiday, during a religious holiday. They say, look, you're okay with cutting up the baby turkey inside of the turkey and make them freak out about it a little bit. I think it'd be kind of funny. It's entertaining nonetheless, and Cornish game hen is quite delicious anyway. So there you go. Put a Cornish game hen inside of your turkey when you cook it. And I know a lot of people put different things in it. We were just talking off the air here for a minute of putting a duck inside of the turkey and then stuffing it with the breading and with everything in there. And stuff meat inside of meat is a very delicious thing. But do it with a purpose and have a little fun. Freak them out, baby, because a Cornish game hen, and just stick it inside of the turkey when you fry it. That'd be entertaining to watch. I love it. It's a good idea. 721-8255, 721-TALK. Starting this week, we're going to be talking to many of our legislators in the next couple of weeks here. Thursday next week is Thanksgiving, so we'll see what guests we get next week. But this week, we're going to start off our legislative preamble, getting ready for the session in January, seeing what's going to happen up there. It's going to be a big deal. Plus, you're not going to want to miss it on Wednesday. We talk with the man himself, yes, Alex Jones from Infowars.com. Whether you agree with him, whether you like him, dislike him, he's an entertaining broadcaster. He's number 26 in the country as most listened to talk show host. He's got something to offer, and it'll be fun to chat with him as we are an affiliate of his on his Sunday evening show. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is the Voice of Reason on KQAM. Have a great day, everybody.